CDL Airbrakes 25 questions. All vehicles on the road that have air brakes must have low air pressure warning signals. Your air tanks hold a mixture of water and compressor oil. If left inside to collect at the bottom, the water may freeze and cause brake failure. The best way to test the low air pressure warning signal is to release the parking brake. All vehicles, release the tractor protection valve, on combination vehicles, and turn off the engine of your vehicle while leaving the electrical power on. Then step on and off the brake pedal. The low air pressure warning signal should come on when the pressure falls below 60 psi. You should never need to get down to 30 psi. After the initial drop, the maximum acceptable leakage rates per minute are 3 psi for single vehicles and 4 psi for combination vehicles. If the leakage rate is higher, check for leaks and correct them. The safety valve, which protects the system from excessive pressure, is usually set to open when the system reaches 150 psi. If you do not pass the Airbrakes knowledge test, you will only be able to get a CDL with a restriction that limits you to driving vehicles without air brakes. So good luck. When you drive down long, steep downgrades, the braking effect of your engine is what's most important, and your brakes are only a supplement to being in the proper low gear. They cannot compensate for your vehicle being in an unsafe high gear without putting too much pressure on your brakes. Unless your vehicle automatically drains the air tanks, you should drain them at the end of each working day so that the moisture and oil will not freeze or coagulate and cause your brakes to fail. Spring brakes are an important backup system, powerful springs that automatically apply the brakes if they sense that air pressure has been lost for some reason, such as a leak. They will also apply the brakes if the psi gets too low, although ideally, you should take control of your brakes before that happens. You should always use your parking brake except when the brakes are very hot or they are wet and at risk of freezing. The tractor protection valve protects your air brake system by providing the air supply, closing automatically if the air supply drops too low, and closing if you apply the parking brakes on your vehicle. Vehicles manufactured after 1998 are required to have anti-lock brakes. They also have a yellow ABS malfunction lamp. The supply pressure gauge tells you how much air is in the tank at all times. In some vehicles, it may be connected to a warning bell or light. On both tractor trailers and single vehicles, to test whether the spring brakes will come on automatically, use the same method you use for testing the low air pressure warning signal. Step on and off the brake pedal, this time until you reach an even lower psi reading and the parking brake valve closes or pops out. Slack adjusters are an important part of your air brake system that allows you to adjust the brakes to ensure that they are safe. They are located in different places, depending on the type of brakes that you have. ABS does not have much effect on your everyday driving. It does not affect your braking capability or shorten your stopping distance. It just helps you keep control of your vehicle by activating when your wheels are about to lock up. To ensure that your truck will be safe when you leave it unattended, apply the parking brakes and chock the wheels. Removing the keys is a simple safety tip for any vehicle, even a passenger car. Brake fade and fail are usually due to incorrect use of the brakes that causes excess heat. This may be caused by incorrect brake adjustment, not enough reliance on engine braking, excessive use of the service brakes, or another mechanical factor or human error. When driving a tractor-trailer combination that has ABS, drive the same way that you always have. Do not drive any differently just because of ABS. Only use the braking necessary to keep control, pay attention when you slow down, and brake the same way regardless of what you're driving. Never speed up unless it is part of the safe driving process already. The air brakes are made up of 3 systems: the service brake, the parking brake, and the emergency brake. Before your exam, review the Massachusetts CDL manual to familiarize yourself with what each one does. Drum brakes are on each of your vehicle's axles and contain about 10 different parts, including the axle, slack adjuster, and brake drum itself. While a safety valve is part of the air brake system, it is not part of the drum brake. To check the slack adjusters, try to pull on them manually while wearing gloves. If there is an inch or more of give, there is an issue and they should be fixed. Front wheel brakes have been shown to be ideal under all weather and driving conditions. Front wheel braking is unlikely to cause a skid even on icy roads. A dual air brake system is a system designed for safety and used on most heavy-duty vehicles. It uses one set of controls. Typically, the primary system operates the regular brakes on the rear axle, and the secondary system operates the regular brakes on the front axle. Losing the ABS function does not change the basic parts of your truck, so you will still have the same brakes that you have always had. Simply use them and get the ABS repaired as soon as possible. There is no need to panic, unless your system shows other and more serious warnings. The normal operating range is 90 to 120 psi. The air compressor stops pumping air at 125 psi. The safety valve will allow air to escape at 150 psi to avoid possible tank rupture. Why drain water from the compressed air tanks? Water in the air tanks or air lines can freeze in cold weather, causing the ice to block the airflow needed to operate the brakes. Some systems use antifreeze additives, alcohol, to prevent this water from freezing. Your truck has a dual air system and one of the system loses its pressure. What will happen? Either the front or the back brake will not fully operate. When either system loses its pressure, the emergency brakes of that system will activate, regardless of the condition of the other system. The S-cam forces the brake shoes against the inside of the brake drum. If your truck has a properly functioning dual air brake system and minimum size air tanks, the air pressure should build from 85 to 100 psi within 45 seconds. Total stopping distance for air brakes is longer than that for hydraulic brakes due to brake lag distance. Air brake lag is the time it takes for the brakes to apply once you press on the brake pedal. This time is longer than a hydraulic brake system. Under normal conditions, in order to engage the parking brakes, the driver must first let the air out of the spring brakes, pull the parking brake button out, which exhausts the air in the system. This applies the spring brakes, parking brake, and should be set any time the vehicle is parked or will be left unattended. Brake drums are bolted to the wheels, are located at each end of the vehicle's axles, hold the brake shoes and linings. The handbrake operates trailer brakes only. Locking the brakes results in skidding. When making an emergency stop, you want to be able to steer and stay in a straight line. When the low pressure warning is activated, you should bring the vehicle to a safe stop while you still control the brakes. When the safety valve releases air, it means that the pressure has exceeded 150 psi, too much air is in the air compressor, and something is wrong, and you should have it checked by a mechanic. In a single vehicle with a fully charged air system, air pressure loss, after the initial drop and brake applied, should be less than 3 psi per minute. The service brake system applies and releases the brakes by using the brake pedal under normal driving. Your vehicle's single brake system needs adjustment if the compressor cuts out between 70 to 90 psi. Some air brake systems have an alcohol evaporator which helps reduce the risk of ice in the air brake valves during cold weather. The safety valve in the air compressor tank is set to open at 150 psi. The air compressor governor controls when the air compressor pumps air into the storage tanks. A dual air brake system has 2 air brake systems and 1 set of controls. An emergency brake is required on commercial vehicles, must be held on by mechanical force, and could be activated by the loss of air pressure. To check the slack adjusters on S-cam brakes, you should wear gloves and pull hard on each slack adjuster. With dual air systems, the air pressure should build from 85 to 100 psi in 45 seconds. A fully charged air system typically has 125 psi. To test the air leakage rate, you should turn off the engine and release the service brake. When testing air leakage rates for combination vehicles, before applying the brake pedal, air brake systems should not lose air faster than 3 psi per minute. To check the air compressor governor cut-in and cut-out pressures, run the engine at a fast idle, step on and off the brake to reduce tank pressure and monitor the air pressure gauge. Air tanks should be drained at the end of each day or shift to keep sludge from clogging brake system valves, and manually when automatic devices fail. Fanning air brakes decreases the air pressure. If your air compressor stops working, you'll still have air pressure left in the air tanks. The governor allows the air to start pumping again when it reaches the cut-in level, or around 100 psi. You should not use the parking brakes when the brakes are hot. The brake drums or discs must not have cracks longer than half the width of the friction area. Slack adjusters can be adjusted manually or automatically. To determine if slack adjusters need adjustment, release both the service and parking brakes. An air tank is equipped with a drain valve to remove water and oil. The governor stops pumping air when it reaches the cutout level, or around 125 psi. Air loss in a straight truck or bus should not be more than 2 psi in 1 minute with the engine off and the brakes released. To make an emergency stop with air brakes, using the stab braking method, you should brake as hard as you can, get off the brakes when the wheels lock, get back on the brakes when the wheels start rolling again. You should know that your brakes are fading when you have to push harder on the brake pedal to control your speed on a downgrade. To check the free play of manual slack adjusters on S-cam brakes, you should park on level ground, chock the wheels, and release the parking brakes. If the air compressor should develop a leak, what keeps the air in the tanks? The one-way check valve. When driving down a long steep hill, you should release the brake when you are 5 mph below your safe speed. The brake system that applies and releases the brakes when the driver uses the brake pedal is the service brake system. The most common type of foundation brakes found on heavy vehicles is the S-cam drum. Vehicles with air brakes must have an air pressure gauge to show the pressure available for braking. The driver must be able to see a warning that is given before air pressure in the service air tanks falls below 60 psi. If your vehicle has an alcohol evaporator, every day during cold weather you should check and fill the alcohol level. During normal driving, spring brakes are usually held back by air pressure. Air braking takes more time than hydraulic braking because air brakes need to have airflow through the lines to work. In air brake vehicles, the parking brakes should be used whenever the vehicle is parked. The brake pedal in an air brake system controls the air pressure applied to put on the brakes. If your truck or bus has dual parking control valves, it means that you can use pressure from a separate tank to release the spring brakes to move a short distance. A straight truck or bus air brake system should not leak at a rate of more than 2 psi per minute with the engine off and the brakes released. If your vehicle has an alcohol evaporator, it is there to reduce the risk of ice in air brake valves in cold weather. If you must make an emergency stop, you should brake so that you stay in a straight line and can steer. Your truck or bus has a dual air brake system. If a low air pressure warning comes on for only one system, what should you do? Stop. Safely park, and continue only after the system is fixed. When you apply pressure to the brake pedal, you are putting on the brakes. The air compressor is connected to the engine through gears or a V-belt. Which type of brake is the most common in commercial vehicles? S-cam brakes. An application pressure gauge shows how much air pressure you are applying to the brakes. All vehicles with air brakes are required to have a low pressure warning signal. This could be a red light, a wigwag mechanical arm, and a buzzer. To test your service brakes, you should release the parking brake, move forward slowly and depress brakes. Stab braking occurs when you press on the brake pedal as hard as you can, release the brakes when the wheels lock up, and apply the brakes when the wheels start rolling. Air brakes take longer to stop than hydraulic brakes because it takes longer for the air to flow through the lines. The proper way to go down long grades is to apply brakes just hard enough to reduce speed to 5 mph below safe speed, then release until back to safe speed and repeat process. You should avoid using the parking brake when the brakes are hot. Modern air brake systems combines 3 different systems. They are the service brakes, the parking brakes and the emergency brakes. Oil and water usually collect in compressed air tanks. If you do not have an automatic tank drain, when should you drain the air tanks? After every working day. Why drain water from the compressed air tanks? Water can freeze in cold weather and cause brake failure. Air brake equipped vehicles must have a supply pressure gauge. What can legally hold a parking or emergency brake in position for a truck, tractor, or bus? Spring pressure. Which of the following makes the total stopping distance for air brakes longer than that for hydraulic brakes? Brake lag distance. Of the choices below, the first thing to do when a low air pressure warning comes on is stop and safely park as soon as possible. The braking power of the spring brakes depends on the adjustment of the service brakes. The air compressor governor controls when air pumped into the air tanks. The application pressure gauge shows the driver how much pressure is being applied to the brakes. Air brakes are really 3 different braking systems: service brake, parking brake, and emergency brake. The service brake system applies and releases the brakes when you use the brake pedal during normal driving. The parking brake system applies and releases the parking brakes when you use the parking brake control. The emergency brake system uses parts of the service and parking brake systems to stop the vehicle in a brake system failure. The air compressor pumps air into the air storage tanks, reservoirs. The air compressor is connected to the engine through gears or a V-belt. The governor controls when the air compressor will pump air into the air storage tanks. When air tank pressure rises to the cutout level, around 125 pounds per square inch or psi, the governor stops the compressor from pumping air. When the tank pressure falls to the cut-in pressure, around 100 psi, the governor allows the compressor to start pumping again. Repeatedly pressing and releasing, fanning, the brake pedal may result in a loss of air pressure. Air storage tanks are used to hold compressed air. A safety relief valve is installed in the first tank the air compressor pumps air to. The safety valve protects the tank and the rest of the system from too much pressure. The valve is usually set to open at 150 psi. If the safety valve releases air, something is wrong. Foundation brakes are used at each wheel. The most common type is the S-cam drum brake. Brake drums, shoes, and linings. Brake drums are located on each end of the vehicle's axles. The wheels are bolted to the drums. The braking mechanism is inside the drum. To stop, the brake shoes and linings are pushed against the inside of the drum. This causes friction, which slows the vehicle, and creates heat. The heat a drum can take without damage depends on how hard and how long the brakes are used. Too much heat can make the brakes stop working. S-cam brakes. When you push the brake pedal, air is let into each brake chamber. Air pressure pushes the rod out, moving the slack adjuster, thus twisting the brake cam's haft. This turns the S-cam, so called because it is shaped like the letter S. The S-cam forces the brake shoes away from one another and presses them against the inside of the brake drum. Wedge brakes. In this type of brake, the brake chamber push rod pushes a wedge directly between the ends of two brake shoes. Disc brakes. In air-operated disc brakes, air pressure acts on a brake chamber and slack adjuster, like S-cam brakes. Wedge brakes and disc brakes are less common than S-cam brakes. Supply pressure gauges tell you how much pressure is in the air tanks. Application pressure gauge shows how much air pressure you are applying to the brakes. Low air pressure warning. A warning signal you can see must come on before the air pressure in the tanks falls below 60 psi. Red light or buzzer or wigwag arm. Stop light switch lights when you put on the air brakes. Spring brakes when driving. Powerful springs are held back by air pressure. If the air pressure is removed, the springs put on the brakes. A parking brake control in the cab allows the driver to let the air out of the spring brakes. This lets the springs put the brakes on. A leak in the air brake system, which causes all the air to be lost, will also cause the springs to put on the brakes. Spring brakes will come fully on when air pressure drops to a range of 20 to 45 psi, typically 20 to 30 psi. Do not wait for the brakes to come on automatically. When the low air pressure warning light and buzzer first come on, bring the vehicle to a safe stop right away, while you can still control the brakes. In newer vehicles with air brakes, you put on the parking brakes using a diamond-shaped, yellow, push-pull control knob. You pull the knob out to put the parking brakes, spring brakes, on, and push it in to release them. Never push the brake pedal down when the spring brakes are on. If you do, the brakes could be damaged by the combined forces of the springs and the air pressure. Dual parking control valves. When main air pressure is lost, the spring brakes come on. Some vehicles, such as buses, have a separate air tank which can be used to release the spring brakes. This is so you can move the vehicle in an emergency. Trailers will have yellow ABS malfunction lamps on the left side. ABS is an addition to your normal brakes. It does not decrease or increase your normal braking capability. ABS only activates when wheels are about to lock up. Most heavy-duty vehicles use dual air brake systems for safety. A dual air brake system has two separate air brake systems, which use a single set of brake controls. Before driving a vehicle with a dual air system, allow time for the air compressor to build up a minimum of 100 psi pressure in both the primary and secondary systems. Pull hard on each slack adjuster that you can reach. If a slack adjuster moves more than about 1 inch where the pushrod attaches to it, it probably needs adjustment. Test low pressure warning signal. Shut the engine off when you have enough air pressure so that the low pressure warning signal is not on. Turn the electrical power on and step on and off the brake pedal to reduce air tank pressure. The low air pressure warning signal must come on before the pressure drops to less than 60 psi in the air tank, or tank with the lowest air pressure, in dual air systems. Check that spring brakes come on automatically. Continue to fan off the air pressure by stepping on and off the brake pedal to reduce tank pressure. The tractor protection valve and parking brake valve should close, pop out, on a tractor-trailer combination vehicle, and the parking brake valve should close, pop out, on other combination and single vehicle types when the air pressure falls to the manufacturer's specification, 20 to 45 psi. This will cause the spring brakes to come on. Check rate of air pressure buildup. When the engine is at operating RPMs, the pressure should build from 85 to 100 psi within 45 seconds in dual air systems. If the vehicle has larger than minimum air tanks, the buildup time can be longer and still be safe. Check the manufacturer's specifications. Test air leakage rate. With a fully charged air system, typically 125 psi, turn off the engine, release the parking brake, push in, and time the air pressure drop. The loss rate should be less than 2 psi in 1 minute for single vehicles and less than 3 psi in 1 minute for combination vehicles. With the air pressure built up to governor cutoff, 120. 140 psi, shut off the engine, chock your wheels, if necessary, release the parking brake, all vehicles, and the tractor protection valve, combination vehicle, and fully apply the foot brake. Hold the foot brake for 1 minute. Check the air gauge to see if the air pressure drops more than 3 pounds in 1 minute, single vehicle, or 4 pounds in 1 minute, combination vehicle. If the air pressure falls more than 3 psi in 1 minute for single vehicles, more than 4 psi for combination vehicles, the air loss rate is too much. Check for air leaks and fix before driving the vehicle. Otherwise, you could lose your brakes while driving. Check air compressor governor cut-in and cut-out pressures. Pumping by the air compressor. should start at about 100 psi and stop at about 125 psi. Check manufacturer's specifications. Run the engine at a fast idle. The air governor should cut out the air compressor at about the manufacturer's specified pressure. The air pressure shown by your gauge, S, will stop rising. With the engine idling, step on and off the brake to reduce the air tank pressure. The compressor should cut in at about the manufacturer's specified cut-in pressure. The pressure should begin to rise. Test parking brake. Stop the vehicle, put the parking brake on, and gently pull against it in a low gear to test that the parking brake will hold. Test service brakes. Wait for normal air pressure, release the parking brake, move the vehicle forward slowly, about 5 mph, and apply the brakes firmly using the brake pedal. Note any vehicle pulling to one side, unusual feel, or delayed stopping action. Emergency stops. Controlled braking. With this method, you apply the brakes as hard as you can without locking the wheels. Keep steering wheel movements very small while doing this. If you need to make a larger steering adjustment or if the wheels lock, release the brakes. Reapply the brakes as soon as you can. Stab braking. Apply your brakes all the way. Release brakes when wheels lock up. As soon as the wheels start rolling, apply the brakes fully again. It can take up to 1 second for the wheels to start rolling after you release the brakes. If you reapply the brakes before the wheels start rolling, the vehicle won't straighten out. With air brakes there is an added delay, brake lag. This is the time required for the brakes to work after the brake pedal is pushed. With hydraulic brakes, used on cars and light/medium trucks, the brakes work instantly. Perception distance plus reaction distance plus brake lag distance plus braking distance equals total stopping distance. The air brake lag distance at 55 miles per hour on dry pavement adds about 32 feet. So at 55 miles per hour for an average driver under good traction and brake conditions, the total stopping distance is over 450 feet. If the low air pressure warning comes on, stop and safely park your vehicle as soon as possible. The spring brakes will come on when the air pressure drops into the range of 20 to 45 psi. Don't use the parking brakes if the brakes are very hot.